Hey guys, welcome to a special episode of Let's Sit With This. I'm your host, Kristen Calloway. Recently, I had the privilege of being a guest on the podcast Therapist Take with Carrie and Josh to talk more about ambiguous loss and grief that is hard to recognize. Carrie Kiger and Josh Nichols are licensed therapists in the OKC metro area, and they have an excellent podcast that covers issues related to all things mental health, relational health, and recovery. Not only are they professional colleagues, they are friends of mine, and they are actually part of the story of the very beginning of my journey into the field and my degree, so they hold a special place in my heart. They have generously shared the audio with me to share on here with you guys, so I would love for you to listen to that conversation. In the show notes, I've linked to their podcast, and I hope you check it out. If you find this episode helpful, please share with a friend and leave a comment. This guest podcast experience actually encouraged me to record my first Let's Sit With This guest episode, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, take a listen.
Hello, Carrie.
Hi, Josh.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, welcome.
It's been a minute since we've done this.
Yeah.
So I might forget a little bit of what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do it.
Okay, well.
So you might have to remind me.
Okay.
I have given my wife carte blanche on backseat driving, and I think I did that with you the other day.
But
too.
I think
But
we
that's
had it
all
before
things.
you named it anyways, right?
I think you've had carte blanche on backseat driving here since we started.
I would hope so.
Yeah, okay. What do you mean you would hope so?
Well,
You're supposed to say, yeah, I appreciate it.
I
You
do
doing
appreciate
that,
it, but
Josh,
it's kind of built
It was
in.
implied.
It's implied,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Well, I thought I was giving you a gift.
Well.
Okay. Well, my name is Josh Nichols, and I'm one of the hosts of Therapist Take. I'm a licensed marital family therapist, and Carrie is also one of the hosts of Therapist Take, and she also is a licensed marital and family therapist.
Right.
And we have different certifications and things. We won't get into all that. But,
Right.
Well, we are going to talk about it feels kind of heavy topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, hidden. I think the title is Hidden Heartache and Unrecognized Grief. See, I remembered.
Yes, you did.
And we have a special guest here, someone that is special to us because she started out here at Family Solutions and now is in full swing in her own practice. Kristen Calloway is a licensed marital and family therapist. She is the host of Let's Sit With This podcast, which is, by the way, one of the reasons why I wanted her on this podcast is because I started listening to it a little bit. I was like, this is really good, kind of short form material. So I'll let her tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And she also has a private practice here in Oklahoma City called Seeking Peace Counseling. Kristen, welcome to our podcast.
Nice. Thanks,
Yeah, it's good to have you.
Kristen.
So good to be here.
Did I get all the information correct?
You did. My
Gotcha.
practice is in Edmond, but close enough.
Oh yeah. I always group it all together, like Oklahoma City, the greater Oklahoma City metro area. But yes, Edmond. Right. So, can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, so it's an interesting little hodgepodge of practical grounding skills for people struggling with anxiety and disassociation. I've had a really fun ongoing weekly series called Monday Growth Moment, where I've been in marathon training for the last 17 weeks, and every Monday I've shared a lesson from that past week of training that kind of can generalize to regular life.
Sure.
And then I just love talking about heavy and hard things that people feel alone with. So right now I'm in a series called Navigating the Holidays with Tricky People. Setting
I like
boundaries.
that.
That's good, yeah.
Very cool. And it's just you in there.
Just me,
right?
yes.
Man, that's so intimidating to me.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
I
I
feel like I
love
gotta
it.
have somebody to talk to. I'm like,
I just talk to my computer screen.
yeah.
To everybody.
Is your
talking to
video on there?
everybody.
It's like you're talking to you. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I thought it was really good. I think there's a purpose for it. You know, like I think a lot of podcasts, people are listening, trying to educate. And I don't want to say, I think yours is a little bit like that too, but yours is pretty practical too, like where you're actually helping people breathe. And so I think that's really cool. Good use of the platform for sure.
Thank
helpful.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to imagine that I'm talking to a client when I'm talking about
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. So tell us, because I'm just interested because you started out here as a candidate, or was it? You started as an intern.
I
didn't you?
started as an undergraduate
Undergraduate
intern in your
Yeah.
front office.
That's
and
right.
the very first therapy session I shadowed was with you.
Oh, really? How was I?
I was
Well,
just in
just
awe the whole time.
Thank you.
This is therapy
love
and
it.
Josh
Can't
Nichols.
believe
Lie to
it.
me.
Yes.
Lie to me, Kristen. So, by the way, Kristen, if you haven't met Xander, he is our producer. I should have given him a shout out. The guy working our cameras and all the stuff you guys seeing showing up on screen, that's not AI. It's not just happening as we talk. That is Alexander Holland. We call him Xander. Does your clients call you Xander?
Yeah, I usually go by Xander.
Xander computer.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was just something for us. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
saying we're
Just
not
us.
special. Okay.
Well,
So Alexander, he's also a licensed marital and family therapist here in our practice.
That is so cool.
yeah. It's nice
Yeah.
to be here.
Why did we pick this topic on unrecognized grief? Like, why did that come to your mind?
This is a topic that shows up with almost every client of that something in their life has usually been devastating, but in a quiet way so that they don't realize that what they're actually going through is grief. And so it's educating that there's a huge aspect of grief that is not just the physical death and loss of, a person that we love, but that there can be a lot of ambiguous loss and what I call quiet grief.
Would you real quickly define ambiguous loss? Like, I think Pauline Boss, wasn't she the first one to kind
That's
Yes.
how I
explain?
learned of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love her stuff. So, ambiguous loss is just a loss that is outside of the normal human experience, that is not related to the typical death of a person. She, in her work, which came out in the late 90s, she categorized it in two different ways of you could have someone who is physically present but psychologically absent. So we see that with family members having Alzheimer's and dementia, where they're still around, but their mind is gone. But also the people who are physically absent but psychologically present. And in her work, that was a lot of missing in action service members, Vietnam War, or parents of lost children.
Yeah. So we were in grad school in 2003, 2004 ish, and so we're right after 9/11 basically, and so I think she
She was part of, that's from what I
Right,
remember,
yeah,
part of
so-
studying.
so like all the people that weren't recovered, and and then I think do you remember the Natalie Holloway story?
Oh, for sure,
went
yeah,
missing
yeah.
in Aruba, and the mom that vowed to never leave Aruba until they found her, and I don't think they've ever found her. But I think we've had a lot of discussions in grad school about ambiguous loss
Ambiguous
around
loss.
that topic. But I think even like a miscarriage, right? Like,
Absolutely.
and so I think people experience ambiguous loss in my mind probably a lot more than they do, just what we would think of as like a loss, like a death in the family, or
Yeah, absolutely.
right. Well, let's dive right into it
Yeah.
then. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just naming it. The invisible. Like, start us off there. Like, what does that mean to name, or what's the process, or why are we going to do this? Why is it important?
I think it helps to dispel a lot of the myths that people need to overcome in order to recognize that what they're going through is a quiet grief or ambiguous loss. There's a lot of, there's just that general saying like time heals all wounds.
Yeah.
And so people thinking that, okay, at a certain point I'll get over it because time has gone on. And I like to say that time alone just freezes wounds, that it might create distance from that initial pain, but it doesn't time doesn't just heal it. And so people tend to stay stuck. They tend to not understand what could be really contributing to the, just that anxiety and depression that they're struggling with, just never feeling fulfilled or, feeling good enough. They just stay stuck and they don't quite understand. And so naming it is, the first step to be able to walk through healing from that grief.
Yeah.
Do you find that people are surprised sometimes
Mm-hmm.
when you actually reflect back to them? Oh, that sounds like grief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Because most people, nobody died,
Right,
right? Or
right.
nothing bad actually happened, or, especially with infertility and miscarriage, well, there wasn't, nobody could tell. There's nothing that's changed. Absolutely.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I hear that a lot from people, and when I reflect it back, you can see it on their faces, right? The surprise, the shock, but also then like, oh my gosh, that is like a click happens, and the reverence that I think just human beings have when you use a word like grief, it creates, I think, such an interesting space to step in. And the naming it grief opens up to being able to name all the other things I think that go with it. I don't know if
Yes.
that's probably your
Yes.
experience as well.
Yes. Yes. Because when we have, a typical loss, we'll say, the death of someone, I think it's, nearly every culture that has existed on earth throughout time has had a grieving process and grieving rituals. And that's one of the few circumstances in society where we allow people to have really big emotions, be really tearful, right? Really just kind of step away from normal life to just have their feelings and go through that. And to have those rituals to grieve and to be able to, remember the person, figure out, life afterwards,
Right.
Life continuing on. And so when you actually get to name it as grief, you get to find ways to create those rituals for them
Right.
and to walk through it, where then they can accept that they're still crying about it so many years later,
Right.
or that it actually is life altering and devastating, but nobody knows and nobody would know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like in the work that we've done or that we do in like betrayal trauma, that happens a lot.
Very
because
much.
it is a kind of an ambiguous loss. What I refer to as like the death of the marriage. So, in those moments, like when we're seeing them start to grieve, basically, I'll just stop for a second and say, "Does it feel like your body is trying to grieve something?" And that kind of hits them like, yeah, that's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's what's happening. Like something died. You lost something, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious though. Do you guys know why naming it is so important to us? Because it is. I mean, I know that's true for
Right.
just
You
for a
hear-
lot of things.
You
Like
hear
giving
that
it a
quote,
name.
right? Name it to tame it.
Yeah.
Right? Is
Like
the saying.
why do our brains like that?
I think it moves it from one part to the other. I think I wish I knew the mechanisms and the locations, but I think my understanding a little bit of it kind of like processing trauma. If it's just kind of that, like your sock drawer where you throw everything in the back and you don't know what's in there, you got to get it out and name it to see it. And I think it moves it into a spot now. It puts it in a sequential story. And again, remember, that's how we process things,
Yeah.
right?
Something about saying it.
Yeah,
it's
we
just
need
like
the
weird.
language. I mean, language is, we
Huge,
need
yeah. So
language.
powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's, not just what therapy does for people. But I could also live with it if all you said is we just help people say what they
Yeah.
need to say.
Don't say it because if you say it, you can't
Right.
unsay it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I know
right.
even though we know exactly what you're thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you say it, you can't unsay it, and I can't unhear it. It's so strange.
Yeah.
My therapist says the same thing, which is like, you got to name it first. And then there's something about that processes it differently. And I read something, and this is tough because I don't have like the qualifications like of a doctor to know brain
know.
chemistry and stuff, but I'm thinking about something I read where typical memories are stored in the amygdala, I think. Don't quote me on that. But kind of like traumatic memories are stored more as like present experiences, I guess. And so when we access those memories, the body is re-experiencing them like currently, And therapy, I think I've talked to you about this, Carrie, about like the elasticity of the brain during therapy, that it allows for things to move in different ways. And so I think that neuroscience is now backing up a lot of what therapists have been doing forever,
Seeing, yeah.
which is moving these traumatic experiences down into the amygdala to become memories instead of like my body currently feels them. And so I wonder if naming them does something similar, where you get to put it in a category, a box, and it becomes more manageable instead of being nebulous and just like everywhere and kind of terrifying and overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's all I got.
So what I took from that is memories are stored in the amygdala, to quote him.
Yeah, quote me on that.
right.
Write it, put it on the website.
Yeah.
Dr. Xander, not Dr.
All right, so let's move into the second thing, talking about family dreams, broken expectations. Tell us a little bit about what you mean by that.
There's an imagery that I use with a lot of clients to help explain this, that particularly when it comes to family dreams of the family that we've created, that we live in, that our expectations and our dreams are kind of in this glass house. And so everywhere we look are just the hopes and dreams and plans that we have for the future, particularly, if we're talking about our, children and our spouses, just, what they're going to look like, who they're going to be, what life path they're going to take, what hobbies they're going to do, what, are we going to be a sports family? Are we a hiking family, a painting family? All of those. And we just kind of live in this world with all of these dreams and hopes that we project. And so it's normal to have that our kids aren't, exactly who we, hope that they will be, these perfect, amazing beings. But when there is a devastating difference between what we hoped for and what's actually happening, those dreams will just kind of shatter, but people will just keep putting them back up because they struggle to let it go, and it just hurts them.
Yeah.
And so to be able to move past that is to take those dreams down and grieve them and learn what new dreams could look like and need to look like that can still bring them joy, rather
Right.
than living in this with this hope that is just not happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it is so ambiguous. I don't think I think what I've experienced when I sit with people is they didn't realize that they had those dreams, right? They didn't
Yes.
realize how they had been connected emotionally to these ideas. And I even think like a lot of times those dreams are, an important motivator in
Yes.
our life stories and our achievements. And then to
Yes.
say, "Oh my goodness, now
Yes.
that's not happening, it's not gonna happen." It can
Yes.
feel like you fall flat, right? It can feel very
Absolutely.
depressing. It can
Yes.
feel like pressed upon, right? And so I think it is important to normalize and to kind of make it something that I think you're doing right now, which is, I see this type of unrecognized grief. I think it's a normative experience, right?
Yes, yes. And I think that it can happen so quickly of, someone gets a positive pregnancy test, and then, a few days later, if they start to miscarry, that even in those few days, they built out this whole world that they thought their life was
Sure.
going to go, right? They've already
Yeah.
imagined what their family was going to look like. They've already built that up. And even though nothing externally has changed, maybe their body hasn't even started changing, that's a huge loss. All the way to, families chasing, medical and behavioral diagnoses for years, especially when there's no answer, and just this slow progression of realizing, what I kept hoping my family could
Right.
look like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something that just really bothers me. I've known a couple families in my personal life that have children who, at a certain point in time in their childhood, I think one of them was fairly young, like 6 or 7. The other one was like 16 or 17. Experienced an injury that impaired their brain in some capacity, and completely changed who this person is or was. And both of these families I'm thinking of, I didn't know them before the thing that happened. Like you are essentially grieving the loss of a child and welcoming a new child in place of that child. And it's got to be.
But it's the
Such
same
a
kid.
hard thing.
That's
Yes.
why it becomes tricky.
Yes.
Because it is this, aren't you just glad they're okay? They're still here.
Yeah, they're
Right.
still alive. Yeah.
Right. But they're not
Yes.
the same.
Yes.
I think this is also something that happens, to even make it more broad, that just happens over the course of a long-term relationship. right? I didn't think we were going to be that kind of family or that kind of relationship,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Not even significant things that happen like an injury or a significant job loss, but even just the way people change over time. But there's grief involved in that, right?
100%.
Yes.
And it's hard to recognize that, I think, unless someone really can maybe reflect that back to you.
Yes.
Yeah, and I even think for ourselves, like I know there's a point in time in my life where I was changing, and I felt like it's not like I didn't choose it, just life happens in such a way, and you just feel yourself changing, and I would miss who I was. I miss those times and my carefree thinking, and
Sure.
but I wouldn't go back to it because it's like all roads lead here. So I don't want to go through that again. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, that I do miss that 20-year-old version of me.
Sure. The
Yes.
more fearless.
But
Yes.
the one thing, and this is probably like a little sidebar that makes it not worth it is my ignorance at 21. It's really the thing that I feel like has changed the most about me, in that
Sure.
sense that I'm just like, yeah, it was great being carefree. It was great having this view of life and doing life where things were much simpler and made sense more. I had 5 bills to pay, but I'm like, I can't do that again. I was a dummy.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get into kind of a heavier topic here on what this looks like with abusive families, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, or psychologically controlling, or so how does this work, or what does this look like when it comes to unrecognized grief?
Yes. So I think it in my work, and somehow this is becoming the bread and butter of what I do. I don't know what on my website
The
tends
world
to bring.
these things
Yes.
find
They find
you.
you.
They find you.
They
It has found me, and
It's
I
like, oh, looks like she can help me with
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
yes, I have found that it can run the gamut of what, I don't have a good phrase for it, but of parents who unintentionally left needs unmet. So maybe parents who were really trying to do their best, but so uncomfortable with negative emotion that, just trying to make their kids feel better, left a child just feeling completely invalidated and alone. And then they grow up with, really intense anxiety and depression, all the way to parents who are intentionally being negligent or causing harm. I mean, it can just really run the gamut of where your childhood needs met.
Right.
So yeah, we recently did a podcast on where we had an attorney on who wrote a book about escaping domestic abuse, not domestic violence. I think it was.
You said abuse.
Or is that what it was?
I
Right.
think so.
But it's interesting, like, to think of that there's a grief element involved in those types of situations, right? And I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but I can imagine, like, when you're in survivor mode, basically, like your grief kind of has to get tabled,
Sure. Sure.
right?
Because grief has a be still nature to
Yes,
it. Reflect,
yes.
notice, process.
Yes.
In survivor mode, that is a dangerous. I mean, sometimes being still you
Yeah.
can miss something, right?
Sure.
So there is a planning and anger and hypervigilance that's baked into survivor mode, which you need, right?
Yes.
I really think grief work is something that you do when people are safe enough to do it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's often what we do first.
No.
I mean, I would even maybe say that it's middle late in some of
Yeah.
especially the trauma work that we all do a lot of
Sure.
trauma work, right? Because you have to have, a safe enough, right? Space, time,
Yes.
even self-regulation skills, which obviously is a lot
Yes.
of what your podcast is about, right?
Yes.
Which is so foundational to be able to do this
Yes.
because that window of tolerance that is part of grief work also, right? And when you are working through your grief, it's not just about saying, oh, my parent wasn't able to help me. They wanted to make everything sunshine and roses. It's not about, recognizing that and moving that hurt to just blame the parent. It's about actually processing what this has felt like,
Yes.
how it has, manifested in patterns in your
Yes.
life,
Yes.
right? And feeling that and then being able to do something about it, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of structure
Yes.
that
So many
goes with
steps.
right. So
Yes.
many steps, right? It takes a while.
Yes. And I feel like you have to have enough distance from whatever was unsafe in that relationship to even be able to see it. Because I think survival mode, whether we're talking about, children who've had to endure really dysfunctional families to, adults in abusive relationships, you have to view things pretty black and white to survive. You have to do a lot of mental gymnastics. You become a master at justifying and rationalizing because we have to keep this going. And so to be able to pause and sit with that, you have to feel safe enough to look at, that person or those people and consider them in a different light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so a common discussion or phenomenon, I guess, that shows up in our sessions, particularly with betrayal trauma, and I'm curious to hear if you see this too in the work you're doing, because we're so specialized that that's kind of just our point of reference right now, and one of the things that we see happen, and when it happens or starts to happen, we have discussions with our clients about this, is that when the betrayed partner is trying to feel safe, because it's just a different type of abuse, I guess, if you want to use that word, different, just that, being
Violation.
yeah, it's a violation. It might be a better word to say, but when that hits, they're telling their partner, the one who committed the violation, I need you to do this and like, hey, and they're just constantly, focused on partner behavior or the unfaithful partner's behavior, which is completely normal. And the reason why is because that partner is dangerous to them in their mind, right? And when that partner starts doing the recovery work and they start to become safer, they start to, they're starting to welcome health into their life. They're not healthy by any stretch of the imagination, but they have started a path of health. And then all of a sudden, this is what the other partner wanted, right? And then all of a sudden, that partner that wanted this feels all these emotions. Grief or sadness, anger, resentment, and they're like, this person's doing everything I'm asking them to do.
Yes.
Why am I feeling this way? And I tell them, I was like, it's because when someone's sitting next to you that's dangerous, you're not going to take your eyes off of them. You're going to be like, oh, I was shot in the arm. Just wrap that up. Like I'll deal with that later.
Yes.
I got to focus here.
Yes.
Because that's the person who shot me.
Yes.
And then when this person starts becoming safe, it's like, okay, let me look at this. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
And now you get to sit with all these feelings and you get to feel the fullness of them, right?
Yes.
And so, it's hard.
Yeah. And when safety feels unsafe, right? So when your partner is actually...
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Let's quote Kristen on that.
When...
That's what we should have called the podcast episode.
That would have been good.
When safety feels unsafe. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
You're fine. Just when safety feels unsafe. And so when they're making those changes and your nervous system is saying, well, no, the last time that this felt safe, they were actually betraying me or hurting me and I didn't know. And so how do I know?
Yeah.
Because they still look the same.
Yeah.
Right. And they are, there's probably still a lot about their personality and behavior and mannerisms that are similar. There's not enough. They don't look different enough. And so it feels unsafe to say, yeah, I bandaged this up and you're not going to hurt me again. You're just waiting for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of touched on this last one a little bit in our discussion of at least the loss of self part. But moral injury and the loss of self, exploring the grief tied to the loss of innocence, personhood, and identity, in the face of military or first responder experiences.
Yeah. How does that look for you, for your first responder clients?
That is, those are heavy ones. Those are hard ones to walk through, where the actions you had to take to stay alive, to ensure your survival, whether that be, you were deployed in a combat zone, or, on a patrol shift in your city, the things that you had to do and were required to do are normally illegal and, are abhorrent to the general public, but you had to do it and you were allowed to do it or needed to do it to stay alive. And so just the weight, typically, that is showing up as officer involved shootings.
Okay.
And service members who, went to combat zones and had to, do a lot of hand-to-hand combat or close quarters fighting where it was either kill them or be killed. And so it's just in trying to make sense of who am I now that I've done this? How was I capable of doing this?
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
Am I capable of this again in the future?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because before that training, they grew up in every culture probably on the planet of we don't want to hurt other people, right?
Yes.
And so the moral, like you're talking about, the moral exploration,
Yeah.
right? I mean, gosh, that's a lot of transformation.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do this for a living.
I do. I do. Yes. And so my office is filled with I think I have a few like little dumpster fire pictures where it says I'm fine. Like we have to find things that I have my new favorite one. It's a pillow of a possum that says the horrors persist, but so do I.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And so we just, we have to laugh, and often in the middle of talking about those horrible things, we'll find something to laugh about, because if you don't,
Sure.
it's just
Sure.
Yeah.
so heavy.
You just
It
don't want to be
is.
hot mic'd when it happens, right?
Right? Yes.
Yeah, we talk about that too. Like as therapists, like when we get together, we have to be able to do our jobs. We have to find humor in it's really humor in the absurdity
Yes.
of what's going on. Like, is this really happening? Like, can you believe that these things happen still? And I'll never forget Carrie once saying like that. Sometimes it's really hard as a therapist to let yourself believe that certain things we hear that are happening are actually happening in the world today, in our backyard, in a civilized, what's supposed to be a civilized place.
Right.
It's like I just like to believe that those things aren't happening, and then
Ignorance really is bliss.
no joke.
Yes.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
21-year-old self.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
know.
start to miss them quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Xander, do you have any final thoughts, since you are the ultimate wisdom of this?
Oh,
podcast?
that's
Put you on the spot.
Again.
Well, something I was thinking about, I don't think we touched on it, was the kind of doubling of grief that happens when you've been hurt by somebody and you're going through the motions of survival, and there's not a lot sometimes it's hard to be really insightful during those times, or really conscious during those times, or intentional. And is there a moment where maybe while you're surviving, you're maybe not making the best decisions, like you find yourself being very angry, or saying things you don't mean totally, or shutting yourself off to people, or engaging in maybe some unhealthy coping skills and stuff like that. And I wonder if there's ever opportunities to once safety has been established, to experience the grief of the decisions you made while you were surviving. Is that something that kind of comes up at all? And what does that look like for you?
You said experiencing.
Kind of like the doubling of grief. It's like, how do I manage who I was while I was surviving?
Yes.
How do I forgive myself for the things that I did, maybe? And
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So, my clients and I will talk a lot about that, it's important to explain the behavior. We're not necessarily, excusing, because a lot of people, are worried that, I'm not taking accountability for what I
Yeah.
did.
Oh, yeah.
But let's understand, how is that protecting you, right? And so the best indicator is that you recognize that what you probably were doing wasn't the healthiest, wasn't great, maybe wasn't aligned with the values that you had, and you recognize that now, and that's fantastic because that means that you can learn from that and hopefully do things differently. But you're right, Xander, that is a hard one for people to sit with that
Sure.
of how I was coping and protecting myself.
Because I think even sometimes, depending on the duration and the intensity, you'll have little blips of like, I know this isn't helping, or that's not. I really didn't mean that. Almost as soon as it leaves your mouth, but you don't have time to like stop, pause, respond, redirect when you're in
Yes.
that
Yes.
survival mode, right?
Yes, yeah.
And
Because
so
you
I
need the
think
people
that-
around you
right.
to give you the safety and the space to do that. And if nobody's doing that for you,
But don't you think embedded in grief work is regret work as well?
yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so it's not about, just simplifying and go, well, we all have regrets, except, yeah, we all have regrets, and it's the challenge for us to go back through those experiences and look at them with self-compassion, right? That's why the term in mindfulness is radical self-compassion. I always say
Yes.
radical is the most important word in all of that
Yes.
because it's going to stretch you beyond
Yes.
your imagined abilities. And not in a way that lets you off the hook, meaning you can continue it,
Right.
but in a way that actually builds accountability for shifting it, right? But I do think that's part of why it is, I think Xander talked about, it's kind of layered, right?
Yes.
I can't believe that I did that at that time, right?
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
yeah, it's just speaking again, I think, to the complexity, and I also think grief work takes time. I think
It
therapists
does.
that are brief therapy trained are going to have to revisit their therapeutic model.
Yes. Yes.
It's just not going to work that way, and that's okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's because that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here and
Yes.
talking about this with us.
Can I give a few practical tips? Because I'm
Oh.
practical.
Yes,
So,
Please.
let's do it.
Yeah.
how
I
to
love
help
it.
people through
Yeah.
that. So I think, because this is the one thing I've been practicing all morning of the talking point, is to go to therapy is my favorite suggestion, but to pull out a feelings wheel. You guys have the pillow, and I have have them in my office. But to sit with how you actually feel, not how you think you should feel.
Very good.
We don't want to should all over ourselves,
Right.
with the expectations, but to sit with, okay, what do I actually feel from a place of neutrality, of just what do I feel? We're not going to judge, right? And to just, because grief work does take a while, so to be with it, to let it be, whether that's, for some people that's journaling, for some people that's going to be, fly fishing, for others, running, painting, whatever, or doing group things. And then I find it to be so healing for people to find a community, even if it's a community of one other person who can look at them and say, I know what that's like.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing for us to sit in a chair, right? And sometimes we self-disclose, but, we keep it about the client. But it's one thing for us to sit in our chairs and, I can understand how you feel that way, or I can imagine you feel that way. But it's different when someone can look at you and say, I felt the same way, or I'm going through the same thing.
Right.
There's just such healing in that,
Yes, I
so that you
agree.
don't feel alone.
Yeah, that's great. That's so
Yeah, that's
important. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, Kristen.
Can you
Thank
tell
you for
people
having
where to
me.
find you on the internet?
Yeah, so my practice, Seeking Peace Counseling, is just seekingpeaceok.com. And my Facebook page, I think, is just Kristen Calloway, LMFT. And then my podcast is Let's Sit With This. That's on all of the podcasting platforms.
And I think you have a Seeking Peace Instagram too, don't you?
I do. I should get better about my social media. I do.
Okay.
They're connected. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will make sure for everybody who's listening to post the links to that in the show notes. I actually think your Instagram and your website and your podcast are all linked right now.
Okay.
But when I do, when I upload this to the podcast platforms, I'll go in and add a bunch of other stuff. So I really would encourage people to check out the show notes so that you can see all the different resources. We'll probably put a link to Pauline Boss's book. And if you have any other like first responder type resources you want to send or email me, I'll make sure to put those in there. And then also I'll go ahead now and say, if you listen to this whole thing and you aren't following us on social media, please do that. We'll have those links in there too. And take a half a second and give us a 5-star review on the podcast so we can get this into the ears, eyes, minds of other people. So, Kristen, thanks for being here. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you. Anytime.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.